Yo, what is up, everybody? It's me, Weep here, back with part 10 for What If Naruto was in ReZero. It has been longer than I would have liked for this series part to come out, but it is done and it is pretty good. I'm hoping. It's been a long time that's been put into this to wrap up the story to the end of season 2. I will be posting the full series later. I separate it because it's gonna the render's gonna take like 12 hours. So I have to post it after I post my Tanjiro, What If Tanjiro Had Snow Breathing. So I'd rather get the part out now for people who have watched the series so you can watch it. And then if you want, you can always go and, if you want to support me, that is, go and click the full series, which it will have every part combined. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I know I said I'd make it into just part of the movie, but then I thought the rendering would take too long since I have it done now. So I'd rather just, render with not take 13 hours of time to do and then just post it. So anyway, this intro is kind of sloppy. This is mostly unscripted since I didn't have an intro in my script. But I hope you guys do like this. If you are new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos from me, as well as check out my second channel where I'll be posting more stuff. Probably not, but maybe. So I'll see you guys in the video. Let's just get right into it for part 10 of What If Naruto was in ReZero. Naruto, Ram, and the rest of the Arlem villagers would be heading back to the main village and also the Roswell estate. Naruto would be ready, knowing that Miley and Elsa would be waiting to attack the moment he arrived. Naruto had planned for this and had created multiple shadow clones already. Each of the shadow clones would be using Spirit Sage mode so as to maintain their own chakra. Anyhow, Naruto himself would be heading to the village to deal with the problem of Elsa and Miley, while he would have one clone of himself now working on trying to fix Garfield's problem with him. Garfield would now obviously have been reset along with the rest of the Emilia camp. So in order for Naruto to earn his trust and actually be able to get Garfield on his side, he would need at least one clone of himself there in order to handle Garfield and see what the actual problem is. Remember that Naruto also thinks that he still has to defeat the 6 passive pain back in his original world too. So he has to figure out how he can actually have the same outcome as last run without dying and having it restart from Satella. So Naruto thinks that's the only way he's going to be able to move forward at this current point. Little does he know that Echidna has other plans for him though. Naruto confronting Garfield would cause Garfield's insecurity to show just like it had in the few previous runs, which would cause Garfield to attack Naruto. Naruto in this version would not have Otto or Ram with him though, but as we know from the previous loop, Naruto with just Spirit Sage mode is more than enough to defeat Garfield. Garfield would fight Naruto as Naruto asks and pries more during the fight, using his most powerful jutsu, the Talk no Jutsu, causing Garfield to begin to spill it about why he doesn't want the sanctuary to be broken, as we learn more about how Frederica left, as well as Garfield's mother and father, and what happened, saying that Garfield's mother didn't love him, As Naruto begins to understand, himself having lost his parents, he would feel a sort of relationship with Garfield. You can insert the Sadness and Sorrow music here if you'd like. With Garfield now completely retelling his tragic backstory to Naruto. Naruto would swiftly defeat Garfield using his power as a shadow clone, might I add. And after doing so, Garfield will begin to call him boss after Naruto takes his hand, staring death in the face. Garfield having threatened him and Naruto just staring through it. This would have been the thing that pushed Garfield to switch sides, seeing for himself how Naruto was able to witness death coming for him head front and keep moving forward. This resolve. This is what pushed Garfield to call Naruto his boss. After Naruto defeats Garfield, he would even learn that he was actually only like 13. What? Naruto be thinking? This guy was only a year older than him 4 years ago. Naruto would remember how short he was back then and then see how tall Garfield is, thinking that he's scary. He makes even Sasuke and Gaara look small. Remembering Sasuke would make Naruto sad for a moment. But then he'd get back to reality. No, this is my moment now. I have to be there for my friends and I have to push through this. One effect of Naruto not having actually had to fight Garfield like how Subaru did is that Naruto does not discover the unseen hand ability that he now possesses, that being the Sin of Sloth, which he actually does have, since he did defeat the Sloth Archbishop, which is Betelgeuse. Naruto does not know that about this ability yet, which means that will be coming later on. Anyway, Garfield will enter the graveyard per request of Naruto, as Garfield decides to face his past himself, where he can find the truth of his memories, the truth of what actually happened between him and his family. We find Garfield seeing a younger version of Frederica, himself, and his mother, and finding out that his mom had actually not just abandoned them and left on her own, but had actually died in a rock slide. His mother had died, not abandoned them. This is a fact that Garfield, having known, would change him and his opinion on the life that he had lived until now. Garfield, having now powered up in some moral sense, would return out of the graveyard feeling invigorated, as Naruto would ask him how it went. Garfield would give him a thumbs up saying he figured it all out. And Naruto would be pretty happy. Happy for Garfield, that is. Anyway, Naruto's clone would tell Garfield what his plan is, saying that his overall goal is to get Emilia to break out of here so they can all be free. And this would be when Garfield would then remember about Ryuzu, as he tells Naruto that they need to go talk to her about this. As they would go and talk to the one who actually runs the sanctuary, which would be Ryuzu, who is also the clone of Beatrice's friend from many hundreds of years ago, when Echidna still roamed the earth instead of the spiritual plane. Anyway, speaking of Beatrice, Naruto, Ram, and the Arlem villagers would be heading close to the village now, as Naruto is preparing for the first fight of the 3 that he has in his mind. The first being the assassins sent to Roswell's mansion from Roswell himself, the second being the 6 Paths of Pain, and the third being, Naruto would gulp, Satella. Anyways, Naruto would arrive at the mansion. Naruto himself would be more than enough to handle Elsa. Naruto would then get into the mansion, letting Ram know to go find Frederica and warn her of the attack. Ram would trust Naruto with him having keen senses as well as having uncharacteristically good timing in every prior situation until now. And so she would do as he says for once, telling him that she only obeys Roswell's orders, but she would go walk off to go and find Frederica. Naruto's main priorities would be to save Petra, Frederica, and Rem, as well as protect the villagers. His main goal here should be to either defeat Elsa and Miley, or at least lure them away. Naruto would also remember the giant mob beasts that would be attacking inside the mansion too. Naruto would think about how he can deal with this when suddenly he would hear a flash. Seconds before it would hit him, Naruto would move his head out of the way, as he would turn, the corner of his eye seeing the knife split directly into the wood right next to his head. This would be when Elsa Goranhirt, that being the Bowel Hunter, would enter the room. Just like all the previous runs, all of the doors would be open, as Elsa had begun to hunt down Beatrice. Naruto would be hoping that Rem hadn't been caught up yet, but she shouldn't have been here yet, Naruto would be thinking. As Elsa would then proceed to attack Naruto, slashing and stabbing as Naruto dodges and weaves, easily outmaneuvering Elsa. Now that he's fought her before, Naruto at least has some idea of her attack patterns. Naruto using chakra would then climb onto the wall, now standing on the ceiling, as he's moving around and dodging and weaving between Elsa, trying to buy time for Ram to find Rem and escape with her and Frederica and Petra. Miley would be attacking the village, but this would be where the other four could come into play. Rem and Frederica could at least handle themselves, and could probably handle Miley if Naruto could handle Elsa on his end. Naruto would suddenly be broken out of his thinking, as Elsa tells him to focus on the fight, as she makes a slash, stabbing directly towards Naruto with a piercing attack to his face. Naruto would take his two hands and clasp them together, grabbing the knife midair, as we could see the struggle between him and Elsa, both their arms shaking, as their muscles would be tensing up, trying to use more and more power. Elsa would be smiling as her eyes become a wicked gleam, saying that she loves fighting him and wants to see his innards, his entrails. Naruto would say he doesn't know her well enough for that, as he dodges out of the way, his hair getting slightly singed. Yeesh, Naruto would say, his teeth now chattering. Naruto would quickly enter into Spirit Sage mode, saying he's done playing around, as the entire mansion would shake as Naruto's chakra and magic began to rise in power. Naruto would then slash his hand towards Elsa, as a blade of wind would come slashing out from it, Naruto controlling wind spirits using his Spirit Sage mode, combined with wind magic. Naruto would use a spell, causing several wind slashes to hurl towards Elsa. Elsa would try and block them with her knife, but one of her arms would actually get slashed off, as Naruto would say, "That looks bad, you might want to get a band-aid on that." Elsa would laugh, saying that he should watch himself, as Naruto realizes that there's blood going down his head. Naruto would say. Fun. Naruto would then wipe his blood away, as he would see the scratch on his forehead, as Naruto would then rush forward at super fast speeds, actually cracking the ground beneath his feet. As Naruto throws a punch, he would use a Frog Kumite-like style, using the wind and controlling it, as he would then punch Elsa in the gut from far away. Elsa gets sent flying back as she rams into the wall, causing the entire mansion to then shake again as she crashes through it, landing into the spiral stone staircase that Roswell owns below. Naruto had jumped down with two Rasengans in his hand. Massive Rasengan, Sage style! As Naruto crashes into the staircase below, dust would be billowing up, Naruto's Rasengans having exploded, causing everything to spin out everywhere. Elsa would be hidden by the dust, but Naruto could still sense her using his Sage mode. Suddenly he would feel her split into two, as she'd be using her own cloning ability. Naruto would suddenly create multiple shadow clones, as they would then begin to attack each other with their own clone techniques. Since Elsa herself has the unique ability, a Divine Protection, that basically have similar properties as shadow clones, allowing her to not die. Anyway, Naruto would continue spamming his Rasengans and shadow clones until the dust would clear. The two of them would both be breathing heavily, as they're almost a pretty even match. Naruto using his Sage style and spirits would still have a bit of an advantage, considering he has magic, chakra, and spirit arts, so he would be overwhelming Elsa by quite a bit. Elsa would decide that it's time to run, but Naruto would then use another shadow clone for a Sengan, running at her and hitting it directly into her from behind while she ran. Naruto would create a shadow clone, then use a transformation jutsu to turn himself into a rope, tying Elsa up and then throwing her out the window, tying her lifeless corpse to the side of the building. She'll be back pretty soon, Naruto would think, remembering all the previous runs where she'd just come back to life and been a pain later. By wrapping her up like this using his shadow clone, Naruto would be able to know exactly where she would be whenever his clone died, because his memories would then be transferred, allowing him to know where Elsa was. Naruto would have figured out this shadow clone training, like I mentioned previously, with Julius when he had been training to learn Spirit Sage mode. Anyhow, Naruto decides it's time to go help the others, as he would run out of the mansion, making sure that Rem wasn't in any of the rooms first, using shadow clones. Naruto would realize that Beatrice hadn't left the mansion, as he would then barge into the room that he first finds, eventually actually finding Beatrice. As Naruto would then point out to Beatrice, asking what she's still doing in the mansion. Almost immediately as Naruto says this, a burst of flame would start to engulf the mansion, as the huge mob beast had begun to spit flames, as it began to attack Frederica, Ram, Rem, and Petra. Damn it! Naruto creates a shadow clone as it goes out after following, as it tries to go and help the others. Naruto then speaks to Beatrice, as Beatrice would be clutching her gospel. Here it would be having a similar moment to what happened with Natsuki Subaru and Beatrice in the original, with Beatrice in tears and crying as the mansion around them is burning slowly. You have to remember that while Garfield is still on Naruto's side, he is by no means at the mansion, since Naruto had shadow clones doing different parts of the tasks that Subaru would have had to do individually. That would be including trying to recruit Ryuzu and Garfield to Naruto's side. Another thing you have to remember is that Naruto doesn't even know that Roswell is really against him much, since Roswell hasn't revealed his hand, And Naruto, last time that he made a contract with Beatrice in the last timeline, before everything died after Sotelo was released, was unaware of the Book of Wisdom. So this is the first time Naruto will actually come into contact with the Book of Wisdom, and will begin to learn about what's actually going on. Beatrice will be clutching her Book of Wisdom, with her book not having had anything written in it for ages, years, centuries, since her mother had abandoned her. Beatrice will be broken down into tears, as I mentioned previously, and Naruto will be confused. This didn't happen last time. What's going on? Naruto will be looking back and forth trying to decide what he should do, since Beatrice is just inconsolable. By this point, Ram, Frederica, and everyone else who was in the mansion would have been escaped from it by now, but it still would have caught on fire from the Great Mob Beast, as was mentioned previously. Anyhow, Naruto would have temporarily put down Elsa, meaning that there's only one threat left, that being Miley, the little girl from the first season who had brought the demon mob beasts and had actually deactivated the crystals that Emilia had to reactivate to protect the village. Anyway, I digress. Back to the actual plot. We can see the flames beginning to engulf the mansion as the great library where Beatrice resided was beginning to be covered in flames, with many of its great knowledge and books already having gone up into smoke. Naruto would be shocked seeing Beatrice, as she would ask him the question again, if he was that person. The person who would put her first number one. Naruto this time, after hearing it for a second time, will begin to understand. Just like Naruto would have in the original Naruto at the last, Naruto at a younger age would finally begin to understand exactly what she means when she says love, and the one person. So instead of an adult Naruto actually having that moment, we get that moment now, with Naruto actually figuring out what it exactly means in that moment. Naruto would know that he doesn't like Beatrice like that, and then he remembers when he said the previous timeline, as he begins blushing furiously, and then says that he's definitely not that person. Beatrice would get angry, as she then tells him with tears saying, "You think you can just walk in here and then reject my feelings?" Naruto would then be pushed out of the library as he gets sent ricocheting and thrown out the door, slamming into the wall behind the mansion, as glass would shatter behind him from the force of Beatrice's attack. Beatrice would slam the great doors closed, and she's decided to die within the library and then burn to death. Naruto, after recovering for a split second, would then realize what he did. Naruto would then run around the mansion looking for the final door. The last door, as he slams open and shuts several doors before he finally finds the right one. At this point, we can see the shatter in space-time, just like in the original. As Naruto opens the door, Naruto could see the entire library illuminated in red, as Beatrice was simply sitting in the chair where she always was, right in front of the door. As Naruto enters into the room, he would tell Beatrice that he promised that he was going to get her out of there, and he never goes back on his word, because that's his ninja way. Beatrice would be crying and crying, asking him over and over again, "Why are you so obsessed? Why can't you just leave me alone? I don't want to be here anymore. This world is empty, a null void with no purpose. Leave me alone," Beatrice would say. Naruto would continue to walk forward into the flames, as the great library was now becoming completely engulfed in them. Smoke would be filling the room as Beatrice would cough, feeling as the darkness would begin to wind around her. Naruto would take Beatrice's hand as he then says, "That person may never come, and that's why, Beatrice, choose me instead," Naruto would say, looking into Beatrice's eyes. Beatrice would be shocked, as we would see the world around her turn white, as she had never thought about this before. Choose? Beatrice would say. "That's right," Naruto would say. Naruto would grab the Book of Wisdom and throw it into the fire. As it begins to burn, its empty pages now just becoming ash, as Echidna would be laughing from her end, thinking about how amusing this is, as she laughs while her own daughter would be in the library, burning, as all the knowledge around her turns to ashes. Beatrice would reach out her hand. As Naruto and Beatrice's hands touch, the contract would be made. We can see Beatrice and Naruto inside a mental mindscape, with Naruto then explaining more to Beatrice, saying that there never was a person, and that Beatrice, even if he's only alive for 30 or 40 more years, which could be a blink of an eye or an instance for Beatrice, and he'll be gone before then, He's going to become the most memorable person ever, he'd say, as he smiles holding his thumb up. Beatrice would cry in tears as she then says, "Naruto, Naruto," his name over and over again, as Beatrice would run up and hug Naruto. Suddenly, a portal would appear as Beatrice would then activate her connection with Naruto using their magic and the great library's power which she had stored up. Naruto, Beatrice, and the rest of the others who had came to the mansion would now have been teleported back to the sanctuary using Beatrice's magic. As Naruto arrives, the contract would have been fulfilled, as Beatrice and Naruto would now have a magical bond between their two souls. Roswell at this point would have summoned the snow in order to bring the Great Rabbit to the sanctuary, and the Great Rabbit was just about to enter. Meanwhile, Emilia would be inside the sanctuary, with just seeing Naruto's messages that he had left behind, that Naruto had used his shadow clones to create while he was with Emilia. As Emilia enters into the sanctuary, she would then be faced with the first trial, the hardest and most difficult trial for her. The trial where she would need to face her past. Suddenly, Emilia's mindset would teleport, as Emilia is now back in time, in a different place, deep within the forest where the elves lived, northern from now where Lugunica was. She'd be looking around as she realizes that there's a little girl standing there. She'd be inside a house? She would see her when she was younger, and suddenly the younger Emilia would speak, as she then looks up and says, "Mother Fortuna?" Fortuna would then look down. She sees her younger daughter, Emilia. She reached down, pick Emilia up, and swing her around, asking what she was doing down there. Seeing Emilia covered in ink, this would be the scene where Emilia had snuck out to follow them and see when Betelgeuse had come to visit the village before sneaking back in. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Naruto would be now pursuing Roswaal, as he and the others would now be trying to cease the Great Rabbit from attacking the sanctuary, while Roswaal would be fought by Ram and Garfield. We would see Naruto as he and Beatrice, using the contract, would then be using wind magic, as they send out great bursts of wind, slaughtering most of the Great Rabbit in one attack. Naruto would be amazed at Beatrice's power, and with the combined might of Naruto's chakra and magic using the spirit arts, and Beatrice's utter control over massive amounts of mana, Naruto and Beatrice would slaughter the Great Rabbit even faster than Subaru and Beatrice would have in the original timeline, using great tsunamis and bursts of wind, tornadoes just destroying all of them and turning them into piles of meat, with the Great Rabbit having been completely killed off in just a matter of seconds upon Naruto and Beatrice's arrival. Naruto would be impressed as he would then rub Beatrice's head saying she did a great job, and then yes, Beatrice would make that cute lolly sound that she did in the original. I know if you watch the anime you know the one I'm talking about. And almost at the same time, meanwhile elsewhere in the forest of the sanctuary, we would see Roswaal being defeated by Garfield along with Ram, who would have found the Book of Wisdom he had hidden and thrown it, casting it into the fire, destroying it using Roswaal's own magic. By using his own fireballs against him, which he had cast towards them while he was protecting his ritual to make it snow in order to summon the Great Rabbit, Ram would have grabbed the Tome of Wisdom out of Roswaal's pocket as he should be blasted away from wind magic, which Roswaal would have used. As he would say that Ram had always hated him, with him having been the one to destroy the village that Ram had used to live in before he had ruined it and killed everyone. Ram would look up in tears as Roswaal says he knows how much she hates him, and that she's doing this if she wants to kill him, then she can. She has every right to challenge him after what he had done. Garfield would tell him to shut up as he then throws another punch, with claws and kicking turning into his beast form. Roswaal would then use water magic combined with fire magic to blast steam towards Garfield, blinding him in the eyes as he would then blast him with fire, sending him back, his first scalding. Ram would look up to Roswaal. She says that she'd always loved Roswaal. This would be Garfield's moment of pain as he would look over, with Garfield acting almost as how Naruto used to be when she saw Sakura now looking for Sasuke. Of course, no one in the ReZero world knows about this, but I just wanted to point that out really quickly. Anyway, Ram would then hold up the Tome of Wisdom as she throws it behind her into the flames, saying this book will always be the thing binding you, and I'll never see your true heart if you're always chasing after this witch. As Ram casts the book into the flames, Roswaal would be shocked, aghast. How dare you? You don't know what you've done. You don't know what you've done, Roswaal would say. his tears beginning to flow, as the only evidence of the love that the great witch Echidna, the witch of greed, had left for him, his only source of strength pushing him on, the one person Roswell ever truly loved. Roswell would fall to his knees as his fist landed to the snow, now almost a foot deep from the spell. As he falls over, Garfield would take advantage of this as he runs up and destroys the huge stone that would be creating the ice, causing the snowstorm to cease. Inside the dream world, Emilia would be facing now her past, as by this point we would see her and finally seeing Pandora for the first time. And alongside Pandora, facing off against her mother Fortuna, as well as pre-time skip Betelgeuse, we would meet Regulus Corneus, the man who, on the way back from the conquering of the White Whale, had battled against Naruto and the Nine-Tailed Fox and had crushed them easily, with Regulus taking almost no physical damage from Naruto whatsoever. Emilia remembered when Naruto had told her about him and his description, and this was him. Emilia would be shocked as she sees these two people, with Pandora introducing herself to Fortuna as well as Betelgeuse, looking for the key. She wouldn't know what was going on at first, but as things would progress, we'd slowly get to the point where Fortuna and Betelgeuse would be battling against the two. It was pretty much hopeless at first, with Betelgeuse fighting using the Sin of Sloth against Regulus, but Regulus's power was just too great, and it was pretty obvious that he was losing, with Betelgeuse on the back foot. Fortuna would be trying everything she could using ice magic, or fire magic I should say to be more accurate to ReZero lore, as she would freeze the air and the water molecules in to create ice by taking the heat out of it. Using this ice, she would then attack Pandora, but every time she died, nothing would happen and she'd just revive instantly. Eventually, Regulus would run into that same problem with Pandora and she'd teleport him away, sending him all the way out of the battle, leaving her with just herself against the other two, Betelgeuse and Fortuna. With Betelgeuse telling Fortuna to run, Emilia would follow close behind as we see Betelgeuse slowly going insane from the Sin of Sloth, turning into the Sin Archbishop that we would see today in the modern world, that Naruto and the friends that he made in Lagunica had battled. Anyway, Emilia following Fortuna would eventually run back into her younger self, who had escaped the forest through the help of some of the other elves that were living there, but had gone back after seeing her friend die, with his leg having been disintegrated. Following the trail of spirits, young Emilia would follow all the way back to the clearing, where the seal was, with her being the key. Pandora would run into Fortuna there, as the same confrontation that occurred all those years ago would replay in Emilia's mind. She'd be shocked as she sees her young self watch in horror as her mother, Fortuna, would die by Pandora's hands. As she dies, Fortuna would look up to Emilia as she tries to touch her face, her hand faltering before falling back to the ground. Suddenly, the air would turn cold as we see Emilia, her eyes hollow and shocked, as this child has no idea how to confront the trauma that just occurred in front of her. Pandora would act like nothing happened, and she's still smiling, looking at Emilia, telling her to give her the key. Emilia would say nothing, as we would then enter into that rampage, the same rampage that young Emilia had done all those years ago, as our current Emilia watches it happen again. Her younger self freezing the entire forest, turning everyone into ice statues. This younger version of herself would continue to say it over and over again. Die, 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 die. Die, die, die. As Emilia would continue to say this, she'd be blasting Pandora with ice, crushing her as we would see blood splattering all over the snow, causing a puddle of red to appear. But Pandora would continually reappear over and over again, revitalizing herself, as everything in the forest would slowly freeze and from the frost burn slowly die, as they'd be converted all into ice. Emilia would be looking in shock, as she eventually would let the magic power overtake her, with Emilia being frozen in ice, into the state that Puck would find her years later. Emilia would be closing her eyes, and as she opens them, she'd be in the same room as Echidna. Echidna would have frozen time in this vision, as she begins walking into the clearing, saying this is why she hates her, as Echidna would be staring at Emilia with rage in her eyes. The only thing between her and her Naruto, the one who could be able to show her every future. If it wasn't for you, I would already have him by now. What? Emilia would say, asking what she means. Echidna would then stop as she says that All you are is a faulty, you're fake, you have nothing going on about you. Your personality, how you act, all your confidence is empty. Didn't you just see your failure? Echidna would say. Emilia would look around. She sees Pandora with her still eyes, crystal blue and with a smile on her face, staring at her younger self now trapped in the crystal ice. Echidna would then look at Emilia, waiting for an answer. Emilia would turn and nod, saying she did, and Echidna would say, "Really? That's your reaction? I would think you deserve something worse than that. Don't you remember what you did now that you saw? You destroyed all of your people. You ruined your entire home, and your mother died because of you." Emilia would say nothing as she looks down. Emilia would look up as she looks to Echidna and would say that the past is what it is. All she can do is try and find a way to fix her mistake. Mother Fortuna is dead, but maybe Yus is still alive, and maybe I can bring the people back. The people who I did freeze. Echidna would scoff as she looks over to Emilia, saying, "That's just hopeless optimism. You have nothing backing up that claim. How do you even know that they're still alive? They could just be turned into ice statues by now with nothing left." Emilia would look up as we would see one tear rolling down her face. She'd tell Echidna that, as she wipes the tear away, if she keeps looking into the past, she'll never be able to see the future. That's why I'm never going to give up. Because that's how I should be living. Emilia would remember all the things Naruto had said to her, seeing him in action, how he tries his best at everything he does, trying to, even though he may fail, succeed in the end. If I can be like that, Emilia would be thinking of him as he proclaimed to be her knight, back at the royal selection when they had that meeting. And when he actually beat Julius, she was sort of shocked. That's when I knew that I could rely on him. Naruto will back me up in whatever I do, but it doesn't mean that I can slack off. No. Emilia would hold her hands up. She says that she's going to try even harder. I'm going to become the ruler of this nation, and after that, with the dragon's power, I'll be able to fix everything. So that's your answer, huh? Echidna would say. She'd look away as she says that's unfair. Echidna would then walk back into the forest as the memory would turn into white light and fade. Emilia would have the chance to say one last goodbye to both her younger self, her mother Fortuna, and Gyus. Goodbye, she'd say. She'd pat herself when she was younger on the head, but of course it's just a memory, so there would be no reaction as her hand would phase through herself. As Emilia would close her eyes as she'd wake back up in the real world, Emilia, having gone through the trial, would have realized something important, as her face would turn red. I really said that, didn't I? She'd think. Emilia would feel a warmth in her chest as she would hold her hand to her heart. Suddenly she would hear calling, and an echo throughout the entire witch's graveyard, as you could hear footsteps. "Emilia!" Naruto would shout as he runs down the witch's graveyard halls, as he'd eventually get to the room where Emilia was, her laying on the ground. "Why are you crying?" Naruto would ask. Emilia would look up as she realizes as she rubs the tears away. As Naruto would be smiling, his eyes would be closed as he then tells her, "Emilia, we did it. Everything's fixed. We took care of the Great Rabbit, and we beat Roswaal too." And as Naruto's about to say the last thing, Emilia would grab Naruto as she leans in and kisses him on the lips. Naruto would be a bit shocked as he opens his eyes, but he doesn't pull away. As Emilia would wrap her arms around Naruto, she would still have tears streaming down her face. Naruto would then lean back in as he wraps his arms around Emilia. He'd be really surprised as he wasn't expecting this, but even with him being as dense as he was, would realize what's going on. As Emilia would stop, she'd lean back and look up at Naruto before saying just 4 words. I love you, Naruto. As Emilia says this, Naruto would realize it, as in his heart and in his memories he would see everything that he had done, pushing himself through the land of waves, fighting through the Chunin exams, fighting to bring Sasuke back, his failures, his promise to Sakura to bring Sasuke back to her, the person he loved not feeling the same things back with him. And then Naruto returning to the village and disappearing, him closing his eyes and being summoned to this magical world with monsters and beasts and no shinobi. Naruto would think about everything that's happened since he got here, as Naruto would be a bit speechless. Emilia would be shaking a little bit back and forth, playing with her hands as she then says, "Well, you should say something." Naruto would smile as he would then say, I love you too, Emilia. Naruto and Emilia would just sit in the witch's graveyard for a while, just holding each other, as Naruto and Emilia would both be contemplating everything that happened back during this whole event. Roswell and all the events, everything at the mansion and the Great Rabbit and the memories, freeing the sanctuary finally after so long. Naruto would feel love for the first time in his life from another person who wasn't his dead parents. Meanwhile, in another world, we would see Hinata suddenly wake up as she pulls herself up, looking around seeing that she's still in hospice care. Suddenly she'd feel a pain in her heart as she turns, seeing wind blow through the tent. What was that? Hinata would be thinking. But she'd feel a sort of sadness that she couldn't explain. Hearing the inside of the tent rustle, Sakura would enter as she asks if Hinata's okay. Hinata would nod, saying, "Where did Naruto go?" And Sakura would say that after the battle with pain, he just disappeared. "He's gone again, huh?" Hinata would say. "I guess I'll never catch up to you, huh? Naruto-kun," Hinata would think. "Sakura, can you leave me alone for a bit? I'm just a bit disoriented and my wounds still hurt." Sakura would leave as Hinata was still choking up, as Hinata would cry inside the tent, thinking that she might never see him again and never get the chance to tell him how she felt. Now it's been a few weeks since the events of the sanctuary had taken place. We're now at a party back at Roswell's Manor, where everything had been fixed up after the fire and the village had been attacked by Meili and Elsa, the Bowel Hunter. Naruto would be in full knight gear, wearing the white robes of Lagunica with a sword at his side, as he'd be waiting to be officiated as Emilia's right hand and main knight, protecting her, just like Reinhardt was for Felt. Naruto would be walking around in the white and purple suit, and honestly it felt a bit stuffy to him, but he did think he looked pretty good. As the ceremony would begin to commence, everyone would be dancing as Naruto would be thinking about everything that's happened in the past few weeks. We see just after the events with Emilia and Naruto coming out of the sanctuary, with Naruto looking a bit shook, and Emilia asking what's wrong. Naruto would tell her he'll tell her later, as first they need to find Roswell. Emilia would nod as she would take Naruto's hand holding it, as the two would then walk towards the cabins trying to find where Roswell is being kept. Beatrice would then run out as she sees Naruto holding Emilia's hand, and would obviously get jealous as she puffs out her cheeks asking what he's doing. Naruto would say he's just holding her hand, as Emilia would then chuckle a bit, saying she doesn't want to make Lady Beatrice that jealous, as she would then grab Naruto's arm. Beatrice would have a puff of steam come out of her ears as she tells her she's not jealous, as she would then huff and walk away. Naruto would sigh. With everything having happened, Naruto and Emilia would have broken the barrier surrounding the sanctuary, as everyone in the sanctuary would finally be able to leave. Ram would be in immediate care as she was in danger after Roswell had attacked her when she burned the Book of Wisdom and then told him everything. Roswell was being contained using seals and magic, which had been performed by Garfield as well as the old lady, and Naruto himself even helping with chakra and using a chakra seal. Roswell would be sitting with his hands behind his back, as everyone would then get into the wagons as they prepared to leave the sanctuary. As Naruto and Emilia would be leaving, we can see into Naruto's mind and what had him so shook after he left the sanctuary with Emilia. Back in the graveyard, as Naruto was holding Emilia, he would have been summoned into a vision, time pausing as he would see something. It'd be the future. Naruto would see flames as he would hear a giant roar. It would echo across the land as Naruto would see mountains burning and collapsing, explosions as chakra would be dissipated all over the land, people's lives dying out as he could feel them using Sage Mode. Naruto would look around. Naruto would suddenly see it. A giant spike piercing through Neji. Neji. Hinata would be in tears as he would see all of his friends suffering. He'd see Sasuke alone fighting against this monster. It's the Ten Tails. Madara and Obito would be battling against Sasuke, as Sasuke would be the only one taking on this war, with the reanimated Hokage doing their best to help out. This Ten Tails was much weaker, with only half of the Nine Tails, that being Minato's half, having been stolen in order to create it, since the other half of the Nine Tails wasn't even in this world anymore. Obito had attempted using Kamui to enter into wherever Naruto's chakra had gone, but it was impossible. His chakra couldn't break through the barrier, thus leading to this weakened Ten Tails. And so Madara, Black Zetsu, and Obito would be fighting in the 4th Great Shinobi War. This vision of the future where Sasuke would fail, where Sasuke would have to be the one entrusted with all of the power of Ashura and Indra. Sasuke wouldn't be able to handle it, as Kaguya Otsutsuki would appear, killing Sasuke before Naruto's eyes. No, As Naruto reaches hand out saying to stop it as he creates 2 massive Rasengans, running forward and slamming the massive Rasengans into Kaguya, but they would phase through, with it just being a vision of the future. Naruto would pound his fist into the ground, saying to stop it, stop it! Suddenly, Kaguya Otsutsuki would turn. Her head would suddenly see Naruto as her eyes would gleam, as she'd smile saying she would take her chakra back. Suddenly, this dim form of her would phase into the ReZero world, as using her Otsutsuki powers, she could follow Naruto's chakra. Suddenly, Naruto would be back in Lagunica, seeing the Otsutsuki destroying everything. He'd see himself holding Emilia in his arms, with her bleeding from her chest with a piercing of the bone ash jutsu through her eyes unfocused. Naruto would be in tears, as he watches everything burning around him, as Kaguya Otsutsuki was coming for the 9 tails, for the remainder of her chakra, and the chakra of her son. That being the remaining chakra of Hagoromo that's inside of Naruto. Naruto would yell out to stop it, as he reaches his hand forward as Kaguya would pierce his visual form. Naruto would suddenly wake up gasping as he sees that he's inside the witch's tea party. What was that? Naruto would have no idea what's going on, as Naruto, having seen the vision of the 4th Great Shinobi War, seeing that Sasuke couldn't handle it by himself. I need to get back there. Is that happening right now? Akina would simply sip her tea as she looks up, flicking her eyes upward, thinking this was her chance. It is happening now, Naruto. After you defeated those orange-headed ones back with those clouded robes, the rest of their group members decided to attack every other village. Akina, of course, would be lying, trying to get Naruto to enter a contract of her in order to go back to his world using her magic, in order for him to stop this catastrophe that's allegedly happening. Akina would smile as Naruto asks, I need to stop it. Please, is there anything I can do? Akina would look up saying, there is one thing. You can always sign a contract with a Witch of Greed. As Naruto in his desperation would be about to sign away his soul practically, Akina would suddenly scoff as we would see Naruto get punched out of the way by the Witch Sin of Wrath, that being Minerva. No, you idiot, she'd say, as she keeps punching Naruto over and over again, healing his wounds. Ow, stop it, I have to get there now. My friends, they're in trouble. She's obviously lying to you. What? Naruto would say. Minerva would huff as she says, you can't trust what a witch is going to say. Then how can I trust you again? Naruto would say. I'm not as evil as Echidna is over there, she'd say, pointing. Echidna would be whistling, looking off in a different direction. Is that true? Naruto would say. Echidna would say nothing, as Minerva would say, yes. Suddenly other witches would begin to appear. That being Sekhmet, the Witch of Sloth, the Witch of Gluttony, Daphne, the Witch of Pride, Typhon, and the Witch of Lust, Carmilla. As everyone would be here, 6 of the witches, Akita would sigh, realizing that her plan wasn't going to work after all, asking why they were all butting into her business anyway. Typhon would tell Echidna it's not nice to screw with idiots, as Naruto would look up, pointing at himself, saying, I'm an idiot? Yeah, all the witches would nod, saying obviously. Naruto would fall over, as he realizes that his world's not in danger, as he breathes out a sigh of relief. This wouldn't last for long though, as suddenly the hairs on Echidna's neck would stand up, as the entire world would begin to turn darker. Suddenly we would see her, as Naruto could even sense her power. We would hear steps as she walks. We would see her, Satella, the Witch of Envy. With her black robes, Typhon would wave, the Witch of Pride, saying, It's Tella, we haven't seen her in so long, how's it been? Satella would say nothing, her face is cold and empty and unfeeling as a stone wall. Naruto would pull himself up standing, as he feels his knees shaking. What is this? Even the Nine Tails would be uneasy inside of Naruto, feeling the witch. As she walks forward, she would stand before Naruto, as Naruto would ask, Who are you? But Naruto himself would know the answer. The person gripping his heart, his soul, every time that he's died in this world, bringing him back. Why? Naruto would breathe in as he looks up, his courage now overwhelming his fear. "Why do you always bring me back from death?" Naruto would say. He could only maintain eye contact for a moment before he'd look away again. The pressure and anxiety he gets from looking at her would cause him to be unable to do it. This would be when Satella would pause before she would answer. "Because I can't bear to see you in pain. Ever." What? Naruto would look up, a bit surprised and shocked, as Satella would look down to Naruto, as we would see the witches all surrounding him, as the witches' tea party would continue. Back in the real world, we would see Naruto now taking one knee, back down at the party, as we see him standing before Emilia, as everyone would begin to announce the rites, asking Naruto to protect Emilia, as well as his duties as a knight. With Naruto agreeing, we would see Emilia walk forward as she holds the sword. A few days before the party had started, we see everyone standing in Roswell's hall, with Roswell standing sheepishly in front of them all. He would say that he's sorry and that if there's anything they want to do to him to make them forgive him, he'll take it. Suddenly we would see an image of Petra slapping him across the face with a glove, as she says she's sorry before running back to her auntie, which would be Garfield's older sister. Anyway, everyone would get a hit in with Naruto using her Rasengan into his chest, sending him gagging as he slams into the wall. With Roswell now having a bruised and beaten face, everyone would be satisfied as they all nod, saying they finally forgive him. With Roswell saying, "Good, now that we're past that, we should probably start planning the party." Emilia would giggle at this, with Roswell saying, "It's not funny, it really hurts. Have you ever taken one of Naruto-kun's Rasengans? My organs! My organs!" Even Garfield couldn't hold back the state as he giggled, watching Roswell on the ground, wriggling like a bug as he pulled himself up, coughing, as he wipes away the blood. "That might have been a little harsh," Emilia would tell Naruto. Naruto would have a sweat drop down his forehead saying sorry, as Roswell said, No, I deserve this." With everyone now getting past what Roswell had done and having forgiven him, the party could begin. Now, back at the party, we see Emilia as she has the sword standing before Naruto, as she would then take it and tap it across both of his shoulders, now officially swearing him in as her official knight. Naruto would kiss her hand as part of the ceremony, and then everyone would cheer as the dancing would begin. Naruto would grab a drink as he then heads out to the balcony, contemplating what happened that day, as he thinks about the rest of what happened during the witches' tea party. Emilia would walk behind him through the open door, as she would then lean her head on his shoulder. The two would say nothing, as Naruto would be thinking about the future, all the things that he had saw from the witch's graveyard. Naruto would look up at the full moon, as he would turn to Emilia, noticing she was shaking a bit, as Naruto would wrap his hand around her shoulder, saying they should go inside. It's kind of chilly out here. Naruto would have a soft smile as she nods, closing her eyes, as the two would then accompany each other, walking back into the mansion on the moonlit night. Back at the sanctuary, we would see the unmoving form of Ryuzu. Ryuzu would begin to shake inside the crystal as her body began to move once again. As the Witch of Greed, Echidna would have succeeded in taking over the body of Ryuzu Mayor. As she flexes her hands looking down at her new form, she'd smile as the Witch of Greed had returned to the world. Naruto, now dancing with Emilia in the party, would enjoy the fleeting moment of peace, as in the back of his mind he would see the images before him, the horrors going back on in the ninja world, where the shinobi were battling in a great war. But for now, he'd put aside the bloodshed, as he enjoys the world he's in now, enjoying the moment with Emilia and his friends, enjoying everything that's been put before him, trying his best as he continues to follow his ninja way of never giving up. His dream to become the Hokage still remains strong, as he continues to get stronger in the world, fighting the evils before him and anything that crosses his path, as Naruto continues to work his way forward, no matter what may come next. And that was it, the finale to my What If Naruto was in ReZero series, otherwise known as Re-Naruto Seasons 1 and 2. This series will definitely come back, that is, if the ReZero anime Season 3 is announced. Whenever that may be, I will return and continue to make the series in accordance following the anime timeline. For those of you who have been with my channel this whole journey and have supported this series from the beginning, thank you all so much. This is my first ever ReZero What If, and its successor being What If Subaru was Sukuna's vessel, I'll continue to work on. I hope you guys really enjoyed the story of Naruto being in the ReZero world, and I hope that it can continue someday once the Season 3 anime is announced, and I hope you guys come back for whenever I continue the series. As for now, though, this is the finale of the series. I may do a Naruto Snow Memories if you guys want that as a special for like Christmas or something, which is the ReZero movie with Naruto instead of Subaru in it. But that is kind of a slice of life movie. There's not really any, conflicts that happen. So it would just mostly be an insert of Naruto instead of Subaru and a few changes here and there. But I will do it. And as well, of course, I might do the ifs, the official ReZero ifs. So if you guys really do enjoy this series, make sure to comment down below. And yeah, thank you all so much. This will be in the official movie, which will be coming out after this part. I decided to split them up because this was an hour-long part almost, and I didn't want to have a huge rendering time even longer because this part is almost as big as several parts or 2 parts. So I want you guys to get this as fast as possible. I'm sorry it took so long. Thank you guys so much for waiting on me, and I hope you guys check out my second channel. I'll be trying to upload animations and art stuff on there more since I've been getting into that. And yeah, that is the finale for my series of Naruto for now. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.